Hello everybody, we're back. Hello. If you just missed it, we did a little teardown of what the lights look like. Once we're done with this, I'll pop that in the description so that you can go and watch what the lights look like. We went around and walked and showed you all the lights and what we've done in previous seasons and now what the standard is. See, Pico, that's in answer to your question that you put in the thing. Can you show us the lights? I have done. We've done it. I'll put it in the description when we're done. Exciting nights racing tonight. I don't quite know how you kept track of that. It was a bit busy.
It was.
It's a bit much. So we are... Let's just make sure that's not on because we can have echo. We haven't got an echo. Two questions that we had to go through tonight, and I guess the first one leads on from what you were saying upstairs, which is about the start-finish line. So at the moment, there's the red panel that's underneath the LEDs that people can use to mark when they go over a lap. You were saying about what would happen if you pulled that down and would paint something on the track, and then what might happen for you in terms of the software. So should we start with you and how you might paint that on the floor if you were going to?
Yeah, so probably what I would do is we've got this gantry here. I take it you can see the mouse moving. Okay, so we've got this gantry, and underneath this one we have a red board that the robots are, as they drive along, they spot that and they will reset their counter internally and keep driving. The problem obviously is that look, I've restarted the lap, and so it's not perfect, but it kind of works, doesn't it? If we were to get rid of this, and that would be especially useful for lighting, then what I would probably do is over here we might even might possibly get rid of that, because we probably don't need it then. We can run power cabling over this one, but what I might do in that case is to run just sort of either a white line across the track or a black line across the track, or as Pico suggested, a checkered line across the track. And from my perspective, that's a very simple thing to do. I could paint that in probably an afternoon, but I've just made life very difficult for Aaron. So Aaron.
I think, sorry, I just realised Swinders has just said you're pointing at the metal strut behind the image of our beautiful faces. Yes, he is pointing.
Oh,
so
yes.
you can see the mouse here. It's this strut up here, which goes down into the corner.
Can we actually move that?
Well, you can turn our faces off temporarily.
No, you should just be able to move it.
Yeah, let's not move it because it might confuse it. But we can turn our faces off. So, excuse me. So now you can see where the girder is. The girder is starts up here, comes all the way down here. So yeah, you can see the problem that would be caused if a robot got stuck and was pointing up at that. It would show that's a possible red panel that it's seen, and it would think, "Ooh, lap, ooh, lap, ooh, another lap, ooh, another lap," and then it would just keep going like that. So yes, thank you, Swinders. We're a little bit tired, but I'll put our faces back on now. Ta-da! So you can see our faces again. But yes, that red panel there. But then it would cause problems for Aaron, which would be...
Yeah, so at the moment, the way the track following code works, it doesn't attempt to see if there's something other than the track in the track, if that makes sense. It doesn't try and see if there's something else over the line. So it would try and draw lines around whatever checkerboard or white line is on the track at the moment. So one thing people won't know is we did actually, when we very early on, might even be before we went with this colour scheme, we did try putting a bright yellow line across here, and we found two problems. If we kept it nice and small, most of the time the robot didn't see it. You've got sort of a reasonably low resolution image, so it wouldn't be wide enough in pixels to actually be certain that's what it was, and not just sort of a blurry bit of red and green going on. So we tried making it wider, and then the line following went a bit bananas when it was crossing over it, because it would have sort of, a bit of line here, a bit of line here, and a massive gap of yellow in the middle that it couldn't draw a line through, and it would make all kinds of poor judgments at that point and generally would run off towards one of the walls.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't really work out. The checkerboard, with any luck, would be a bit easier to identify because it's a nice pattern. But the problem is still, if you think about it, you've got the checkerboard, it'll be facing the robots at this sort of angle, not that.
Mm.
So you've got it out and it will sort of stretch out as it's going into the horizon, if that makes sense to people. I wish I had something to demonstrate with, but oh well.
It's perspective, isn't it? As it gets further away,
Absolutely.
It looks longer. It's like the things you see painted on the road are really long so that you can read them at a distance.
So essentially it should all be doable with code, but like with detecting other robots in the image, it's a bit more complicated than simply following the track. So it would require some more intelligent code than what we've currently got.
Okay.
So got a question on that. At the minute, what we're doing is separating these tracks into RGB, and then we're finding the edges of RGB. And there's a potential point where, for example, you've got a red lane here, you've got a blue lane here, and they sort of touch against each other. What would happen if, for example, we put a bit of black in between it? Because what we could do there is around the start line we could sort of grow that black width and then sort of go back down.
So at the moment it would probably confuse, as the code's currently written, it would confuse it with the edge of the track. But more to the problem is, without the code being more intelligent again, it's going to confuse a tyre, for example, from a robot in front, or a shadow from a robot in front potentially.
Yeah.
So we did have a lot of problems with the light levels and the white balance. So a lot of you have probably noticed at this point the camera is doing its own white balancing, and that causes us a few problems, in particular with the start lights. There are workarounds that we could try and turn it off that weren't originally available when we started. But at the moment, as the code exists, it would probably make the camera go a little bit wonky, if that makes sense to people.
Okay. So I guess that answers the question, kind of. Yes, in principle, it could be done, but it's quite a lot of extra work. So then we're kind of weighing up how much work versus how much payoff do we have. And I think that's probably debatable, I guess, for what we're doing at the moment.
It would make the lights problem much simpler.
Yeah, it would. It would. So that there's a trade-off. I guess we can think about it. But yeah, so that's why the start line and what we would have to do to make the start line work. So the other question I wrote down. I did write them down. Oh, I didn't. For a minute, I thought I didn't write them down. I did write them down. So the other question we had was, I believe this was actually Jamie's question, the IT guy. Sometimes during racing, I don't actually have a video example here because it didn't happen in this week's race, but in previous races, we've had robots that come up to the wall, they pitch themselves up, and then they just keep flipping, and they keep rotating and rotating and rotating and rotating. They keep doing this. Just all the time, forever. And it makes a lot of noise and can cause issues like batteries popping out, so if you don't have restart code, that's pretty much race over. Firstly, what causes this? That's the question I have for either of you.
Aaron, you're going to have to answer that one.
Best guess, I think, essentially none of the detection mechanisms for working out something's not right are kicking in. So there's enough motion that it doesn't figure out it's stuck, because the camera image is constantly changing. I believe when it's looking straight up at the ceiling, where it's very grey, the code's not quite intelligent enough to realise that's grey, not colours, because it's really overwritten to check for black at the moment.
Okay.
So it tries to find which colour it's nearest, and being grey, that sort of sometimes it'll be red, sometimes it'll be green, sometimes it'll be blue. So I think it thinks it can see stuff it can't. So it thinks there might be a track in front of it, even though there isn't.
Okay.
Then by the time it's flipped over and it's lying back facing the track, it can see the track again. So it's happy.
Right.
And it just carries on going in this loop where none of those detection mechanisms sort of panic and make it try and do something else.
Okay, so as the default code stands at the moment, or the base code that we hand out, this just keeps flipping eternally. Okay, so what could people do that might be able to break that cycle if they detect it happening?
So, I mean, breaking the cycle should be as easy as stopping the robot, letting it settle, and then driving it forward or backwards, depending on which way it's facing. The problem really will be detecting that's what's happening. I suspect probably the best odds of doing that would be to realise that you're seeing a frame that's mostly grey. So I don't know if any of you have shots of what the ceiling looks like, but aside from that red girder, it's pretty grey. It's pretty identically grey. So you could probably do something like look at the image and decide there's just not enough colours going on. I'm probably looking at the ceiling. And if you see that a few times over, you're probably looping, you're probably stuck bouncing around on the wall.
Okay. So it's a question of saying this isn't enough of a rainbow for me, thanks, and moving on. Maybe we should be putting like little images on the roof that people they can see, as little Easter eggs. Like we could put pictures on the roof of various people and see if you get a prize if you see one of them in your images.
Good idea.
This is actually quite a good idea, actually. So it's an achievement for those who see the roof.
Actual Easter eggs.
Actual Easter eggs, like real Easter eggs.
If you're a chocolate company and you want to sponsor us.
Yes. FYI Cadbury's. You know where we are. Yes, we should do that. Yeah. I'm starting to think about that for next season. I guess that's the only two questions we had in the Discord, and I don't think there were any kind of real common differences. Oh, James has just popped in the chat. He of Sheldon's Fury. Hello. Just joined the chat a little while ago. What is the difference with the camera when flipped upside down? Camera height off the ground, angle, etc. I noticed the bots seem to move slower when flipped. So I guess that's two questions. What is the differences, first of all?
Well, I thought that the cameras are actually at the same height. I have just measured them, and they are not exactly the same height.
Ooh,
so I'm not really sure
pas.
how that happened, because they were designed in Creo to be right in the centre.
Ooh. So are we blaming the CAD or are we blaming the engineers?
Normally, in normal orientation, the camera is 45mm off the ground.
Okay.
When the robots flip, the camera's 42mm off the ground. Something's not right. Anyway. Okay.
We measured a couple of robots to check as well. They're all the same.
No, I didn't.
Did you not? I thought you did.
But we'll call that intentional.
Okay. So we didn't. We'll measure some other ones and check.
But probably the biggest difference is that the camera is actually in normal orientation. It's slightly pointed down to get sort of a better image of the floor in front of it. If it's pointed straight, it's not as good an image as when there's a slight angle to it. So obviously when the robot is upside down, that angle is now in the opposite direction. It's pointing up. So even if you are looking at the right area of the track or the same area of the track, the image you're getting is looking down from a camera. Looking down from a camera that's looking up as opposed to looking down. So
I thought you were trying to punch me in the head then.
But yeah, Aaron can sort of talk the software side of that. What does the software do? Does it do anything?
Well, the software merely realises it is upside down, flips the image, and nothing more. So I think the reason it's driving slower is you've probably seen it with some robots. I know you could see it with the way the IT guys' code was driving in the last round.
It had a bit of a...
Yeah. It's less obvious with other robots, but I think they're all basically doing the same thing. So what's happening is there's a lot of sort of calibration numbers in the code for, alright, this number of pixels difference, that means this sort of distance. Because the angle and the height are slightly different, those numbers are now not quite right. They're either a little bit too large or a little bit too small. Either way, what then happens is when the robot is changing its steering to correct, it now either steers a little bit too much or a little bit too little. So what you get is that sort of classic oscillation where the robot is sort of driving a bit too far one way and a bit too far the other, a bit too far one way, a bit too far the other. And you can think of it like someone stumbling home versus someone walking home in a straight line. Even if they're moving at the same speed, they take longer to get there. And
Yeah, so it's a drunk robot upside down.
Yeah, more or less. So I think even with the robots, when they're not so obviously making that movement, they're sort of slowing one wheel down ever so slightly and then the other wheel down ever so slightly, so they still slow down a bit, even though it's not enough to really create that sort of wavy motion around the track.
Okay, cool. I think that's probably... Is that all we have time for, or is there any more comments from anyone in the chat? Last chance now before the finals to get your questions in. James has just snuck in at the last second, as if I said it by magic. I noticed that you have 3 PIDs running. I read a blog post that talks about 2 of them. What's the third one?
The third one was a nice idea that doesn't seem to work very well in practice, which from memory we have all the values turned off in the standard code. So the idea was the first one is just where the track is. The second one is looking at the angle of the track, so it's trying to see corners coming up. The third one was intended to look at the curvature. So the idea is not just what direction's coming up, but how much, to try and tell the difference between the sort of tighter corners, sort of
so it's
round
like
that bit.
It's like your man, your navigator in rallying. You know, they're like, we're going hard left, medium left, sort, you know, easy left. Like it's telling you not just left, but it's telling you how hard.
So that was the idea. In practice, what we found is while it did seem reasonably reliable in telling you sort of hard or medium, what it didn't seem to be very good at is coming back with the same number each time. So it'd be like one day 3's a medium, the next day 5's a medium, which then made it hard to write code that used that number in a useful way.
You've
Sounds like me navigating.
It does sound like you navigating. I was about to say this sounds
He's
very
left.
familiar.
No, right.
No, oh god, maybe it's medium. I can't tell. Looking at the map, maybe not. Okay, so it's more. It sounds more human actually than a robot. So it wasn't quite as reliable as we'd hoped, but the code is still there. I'm guessing
it is.
Yeah, we left all of
them
as we developed this. We sort of just left everything in. It sort of, you know, I guess part of the idea was we thought maybe we'd come back to this and attack it a bit more. Maybe we'd improve on this. Maybe we'd improve on that. But also, you know, we'll let other people see what we've tried, what we've had an attack at, and potentially throw this stuff through the simulator and see what happens and see whether you can sort of make it work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's it now. We should probably call this a day because it's like it's 8 o'clock. It's past my bedtime. I've got my granny blanket here. Look, I'm so cozy. So that's it. Thank you for joining us tonight. Finals will be in 2 weeks' time. In between that, the logs should be back now. Logs are up. So if you want to go and check out, see what your logs are like from this round, please go and do so. We will be at Pi Wars this weekend. So if we're a little bit quiet over the weekend, that's because we're dealing with like 2,000 people all at once on our stand. Hopefully not all at once. But we will be busy. So please, if we're quiet this weekend, sorry. And then next week, work hard on your code. We'll announce the finalists as well. I haven't checked the results yet because I haven't checked back through yesterday's, so I will get onto that as soon as possible. I think I just want to double check with you two really that I've not made any mistakes. So we'll get onto that as well. I think that's it. We'll be in the Discord as per a bit, but yeah. We won't be around this weekend because we'll be busy. If you come into Pi Wars, come say hello, please, and we'd love to see you. And we can wave. We'll all be there at different points of the week, so yeah, please come say hi. If not, have a good weekend, and we'll see you for the final. What's the date for the code of the final? Has anybody got it written down? Is it the 5th? That rings a bell.
Bring a picture of your lid if you introduce yourself.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Code deadline for the final is the 8th. We will let you know if you're in the final. Because then you know you've got to work on some code if you want to work on some code if you've got to work on some code. But yes, bring your lid so I know who you are. That would be really nice. So yes, take it easy everybody and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Have a good weekend. I'll find the end stream button. Bye.